I think that's going to do it. Yeah, feel free to throw comments up there and stuff because I won't be reading them all the time. Just periodically after I kind of get something started, I'll walk over, check out and see if there's a comment on there or if there's a question, and then I'll jump on that. All right, cool. All right. All right, and I'm just gonna do it as if, you know, from my own training. So feel free, like I said, follow along, go at your own pace, switch up with me when you want to, and throw some questions up there if questions happen to pop up for you. Okay. All right. I'm trying to make sure that you can also see the floor because we're going to do a bunch of footwork in the beginning. I'll do it kind of slow and then pick up the pace, and then we'll do all of the then we'll do the stick work added on afterwards. All right. Cool. Got everything. So starting out. So we're going to start out with reverse triangle footwork. You'll see I'm starting with kind of this elbow chambering practice. If this isn't something you're used to, feel free to just do a rolling chamber with your hands where they're constantly moving, or just do, usually it's on the same side as the lead leg, or a flat guard, or you can rotate between all of them. Roll hands, flat guard, chamber some, roll your hands. One thing I'm kind of doing here right now is I'm making sure I bring the rear leg offline as well. And I set that foot flat on the floor as opposed to lifting my heel like this. I'm keeping the back foot flat on the floor and planting it there each time. So we're going to transition from this into a fluid or a closed reverse triangle. So you'll notice here, I'm never planting that foot on the floor. And at the apex, the rhythm changes because that should be a quick step. You should practice changing directions at any point in the triangle. Right? So you should change at any point, but make sure sometimes you do full rotations around so that you're not just doing your favorite side. I'm also not just dragging the foot across, but I'm lifting it as if I'm stepping over a small curb. And keep going just while I do a quick check and see what some of these comments and questions are. Cool, just a lot of good mornings. That's cool. Let's move into forward triangle. Again, I can use my elbow chambering. Or I can use a rolling guard. Or I can use a flat guard or staggered guard. Right, so the staggered guard is, the flat guard is just here. The staggered guard is with one hand ahead of the other. I can rotate between all of them. In this particular instance, I'm leaving that front foot on the floor, although sometimes we do lift that foot. But right now, I'm just leaving the ball of the foot on the floor like a takeoff foot. And then we're going to transition this into a fluid or closed forward triangle. And we're going to make sure we can also change directions at any point. And in this point in time, I am not any longer dragging that front foot. I'm not leaving the ball of the foot on the floor, but instead I'm lifting it as if I'm stepping over a curb to transition from one side to the other. I'm also making sure that anytime I do any footwork, I'm thinking of body angling, so I'm shifting the direction of my torso and my hips, and just being determinate about whether I angle in or if I angle out, because both of them have different applications. And keep up. Right, on the forward triangle, I had a question from Earl about the lead foot. Yes, it's on the ball of the foot. It's not flat foot. It's the ball of the foot when I'm doing the open forward triangle, right? I step back and the ball of the foot is here as opposed to just flat foot. So I'm not just moving back and then flat foot putting up there. There's another position we do which uses that, but we'll talk about that at another time. For right now, it's just the ball of the foot on the floor. And or in the closed forward, it lifts off the floor and steps across. Okay. All right, so now let's move to a lateral line step or 90-degree stepping. And this has two variations. For right now, we're just looking at 90-degree stepping, which means from the center point, the shoulders are angling out. So this is different than side stepping, where my shoulders angle in, but it's 90-degree stepping, and my shoulders angle out, right? Even though my shoulders are angling out, I'm still looking back that direction. That is where the person is in relation to me. I'm stepping here off that 90-degree line, and the person is there. So although my hand is up on my guard, I have to make sure I still have visibility, right? If I'm elbow chambering, or if I'm rolling my hands, I'm making sure they're in relation to this perspective between me and that person who I'm leaving behind on the center line. Again, here I'm taking that rear leg off the center line and I'm putting it flat on the floor. I'm working whichever one of these guard positions is my weakest. So if that means for you, you've never seen this elbow chambering guard or this practice, this might be something you want to work on. It's something that in the long run might be useful. If you just need to work on having your hands be mobile, then work at rolling guard. If you're just working on keeping your hands up at a height that's at least the height of your head and your elbows down as opposed to like fly winging, just do that. You know, work on the one that's going to be best for you. Okay, and then last we're going to do some sidestepping. And this is just broken line sidestepping, meaning that if there were a full line all the way across to 90 degrees in either direction, that my center point is the break in that line, meaning that I sidestep here, and then I break that line by returning to the center, and then sidestep back out here. For my guys out here, I'm kind of detailed about the positioning for side steps, that not only do we step and take our foot off the center line, we don't just put the ball of the foot on the floor, but in fact here, I tilt my foot slightly so it is only the outside of the ball of my foot, meaning that the toe that would be closest to the floor or on the floor would be like your pinky toe or your small toe, so that when later on you want to take off, you can roll your foot down onto the floor first, then turn the heel, and then push off. So you get a maximum opportunity to like ground in your traction and make contact with the floor. Okay, so you're still here. You're still either elbow chambering or rolling your hands. I do suggest, even in this, that when you turn off to the side step, throw that elbow up to guard the head. Right, or just keeping the flat guard and keeping the head behind there, maybe making that adjustment. All right, so now that you have reverse triangle and forward triangle and the 90-degree stepping, we can do 6-point and then 8-point ranging. And 8-point ranging just means that after doing 6-point ranging, we introduce the side step. Okay, so again, remember, you can throw questions up as you have them. Feel free to type them along the side, and I'll try and like take a peek every once in a while and make sure I, answer the questions as we go along. 6-point ranging starts with reverse triangle, then it goes 90-degree stepping, which means shoulders out, and then forward triangle, and then I return to the center, and then I go the opposite direction. So I'm going to start going clockwise around, and then I'm going to go counterclockwise, and then clockwise, and then counterclockwise again. So I'll just kind of continue back and forth around this. So 6-point ranging, okay? So here, Right, I'm doing it right now with my elbow chambering, but again, you have all the options. And then I come here, and now I start off going the other direction. I'm always making sure that I bring my rear foot off the center line. Remember, this can use any of those guard patterns that you want to use. The only thing I want to do is I want to make sure I'm still protecting my head, my torso, right? I want to make sure that I'm protecting all the vital organs and the computer, right? The brain box. And keep it going. Cool. All right, so now let's move into 8-point ranging. And all this means is that we do 6-point ranging. And after doing the forward triangle, we also put in the side step to either side. We come back to center. And then again, then we go counterclockwise. And then we go clockwise. And then we go counterclockwise. Okay? If you're elbow chambering, remember that there's a little hitch in there, just so you make sure you're just being mindful so that you still have your inside elbow chambered when you step with the opposing foot. So that's just something for you to remember. And so you'll have to make sure that you're mindful of that stuff as we're like changing directions. Okay, so done slowly, we're just doing it like this. Right? I just do one side step. Now I'm back to two. Now I'm going the other direction. One chamber, go to my left, two, 1, 2, and now I'm going back clockwise. Okay, keep going. Let's make this the last one. All right, so that's your footwork. Let's just do some single tiros. Okay, so take your single stick. Okay, so we'll take our single stick. We'll go through chambering first, then we'll do some cinco tiros, which is just 5 strikes. More than anything, that's going to be just to get ourselves warmed up, get our body warmed up, and then we'll do a few different Sinawale patterns, some practice for that, and then we'll just kind of leave it with there, right? Because this will just be an hour-long session. All right. So first things first, let's start in our chambering. There'll be some variation, and don't get too hung up on the fact that there will be some positions which I may ask, which might be a variance between whether you're doing a PTTA training, a PTKWF training, a Kalimundo training. This is my preferred method, kind of a hybrid of all of those things, so that it kind of encompasses all of those positions. But all of what you're doing, whichever of those references, follow the guidelines of your Tuhan. For this practice, this is what we're working on for the time being, okay? Okay, cool. Yes, I'll watch my surroundings and make sure I don't bust anything up. Okay, cool. So let's start. We have our right leg lead. We have our hand in the C position up here by the heart, all right? And we start our top load. Sometimes they call this crown load, or I have another friend who calls it rooster load. Then I come down to my shoulder load, right? And in this position, my elbow is still at a 45-degree out to the side, right? But my puño is facing towards the target. I do a mid load here on this right side or on this outside line because I do sometimes do broken strikes from here. So I talk about this mid load as well, but I still keep my puño facing forward. My elbow is down, kind of closing the body. And then I do a nice long open horizontal strike across. For me, it's really a practice of keeping that as long, slow, and fluid and horizontal as possible until I get to my mid load on the other side. And I stop that with this bicep stop. I strike down to the low load. Whether that low load touches the floor or it's up, either one of those is fine depending on your reference. I'm going to turn so that my blade reference is forward. That means I'm going to turn my hand so the knuckles are facing forward and then strike up along that 45. And my body reference is still forward all the way back to my cross load, which is also my number 2, or is also a shoulder load. Okay, and then I'm going to strike down all the way until I get back to top load. Okay, so let's do this about 5 more times. Shoulder load, mid load, lateral strike, mid load, low load, turn, cross load, circular, all the way back to here. Shoulder, mid, mid, low, cross load, back to top load. Shoulder, mid, mid load, low load, cross load, top, shoulder, mid, mid, low, turn. For me, this is a practice that you should do nice and slowly. It should be like a meditation because you're trying to take this opportunity to be as exact as possible. There'll be a whole bunch of other opportunities for you to not do it quite right when you're kind of in the midst of things. So here I'm trying to build as many good mechanics as possible by taking my time and doing it perfectly. Okay, so we're going to do one other variation on that thing. The point of reference, one is remember that when you do this, I am not turning my body, right? So I'm keeping my body face forward so that my shoulder reference is still to the front. The other thing is when I do that last circular strike, I should be working on full rotation where I swing from here. Body reference is the floor. It swings all the way to the back and then comes out here so that I can also work mobility in my shoulder, right? And I'm trying to increase my range of motion. And I'm also trying to strike whoever decides to come up behind me. So I want to strike like all the way through the strike, like a baseball swing that doesn't just stop after contact, but that swings all the way through, okay? All right, so this other variation is just making it inclusive of a circular chamber where I swing up to here, and then instead of just swinging that circular strike behind me, I pass, and then I go back up to here, right? So you'll see from here that I swing downward, I clear my legs, right? So I'm not only striking down low, but I'm also clearing anything that comes by the legs. I clear anything that comes by the face. I pass with my hands, and then I come back up to the top. So clear, clear. Okay, I'm going to do that one more time. And then just make sure that I'm checking for any kind of questioning. Okay, so you can continue. Let me just take a quick look and make sure nobody has any questions here. Looks like we're okay. All right. Cool. So that's our chambers. You should always be doing that practice both on your right side, and you should do that same thing on your left side. Put your left foot in the lead, and then do the same work. Right? From the left hand. As you were doing on the right side. Okay? All right. So let's do single tiros for a moment, and then we'll do a couple of rounds of some double sticks and a wale, and then we'll kind of leave it at that. All right. So again, on the right foot lead, we're going to do this static, so we're not going to switch feet for the time being, because when we just keep it on this one leg, it's going to make us work even more through our obliques, turning our torso. So I'm going to chamber for my number one. I'm going to pull that stick forward slightly and make sure that it comes in a clean line in front of my face. It dips all the way down to the floor, and you saw my torso turn. I do my number two. We're going to do all of these from the shoulder load too. This is another important point right there. Okay, so that's my number two. My number three is on my shoulder load, but it needs to drop and come all the way down so that it covers my leg. It needs to again cross in front of my face and be set up on the cross load so that now I can do a number 4 that starts from all the way down here by my leg and then stays referenced towards the front while I chamber here for my number 5. Bicep stop. And now it's in position for me to roll and put it into my other hand. Now I'll change feet through the reverse triangle. So I'm going to step back to the point and then step out with the other one. So that's my 1. That's my 2. That's my 3. That's my 4. With that point referencing the point, the front the whole time, sorry. That 5 still comes up on a clean 45-degree angle. Bicep stop. Then I'm changing hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. And when you put that number 5 in there, give a little dip with your knees so that you can push up and use your legs to give you a little bit more pressure in that thrust, right? So there's my 1, my 2, my 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Every one of these times, I am turning my torso and I'm using a little bit of motion from my legs, from my knees, so that I can put a little bit more torque behind every strike, right? I want to generate as much power every time I can. And I'm also making it a point to fully reach the chamber in each of these. Keep going. Cool. We don't have a lot of questions, so I'm assuming that means it's all clear from the 3 folks who are on here. Most of you guys have already done this before, so it's not like new business. But if you ever do have a question, just make sure you let me know so that I can answer whatever you need. All right, cool. So let's take that double stick. I'm going to angle this a little bit out slightly so I have a little bit more room on my right-hand side. All right. So we're going to do just a few different patterns, and we are going to do just some basic reverse triangle stepping with this. One thing to note is that if I'm swinging from the side and I have that same foot forward, one, I'm generally working in long range, and 2, for the most part, I'm going to remain in a fairly neutral position if I'm with a partner who is doing the same thing, right? We're going to end up just being in front of each other. If I have my opposing leg forward, oftentimes this is because I'm about to make some movement out to the side, or I'm going to use it as a passing movement, okay? So that's a possibility as well. So just keep that in mind, and we'll talk more about that as in the future, as a future reference, okay? Hold on. I have another person who is trying to sign in, and I did not give them the updated info. Hold on. All right, that is my bad. I had to use a different kind of channel in order to do this thing. And so hopefully, that's our friend James from up in Canada. All right, so he's coming in at a good point though, because we've just gone through a variety of footwork. We've done our chambering practice. We did cinco tiros all from the shoulder load. And now we're just going to do a few different variations on Sinawali. So we're going to be in this cross load position. And the first thing we're going to do is just strike a parallel strike, right? So both of these sticks are coming at the same time, parallel. And then I'm switching feet, and then they're going parallel, parallel, parallel. So they will only switch positions for the chamber after they've done their work, right? That means that they're passing and striking parallel. And once they've done their work and they get back here to that rear position, that's when they switch positions, and one is on top and then switches to be in that low load under the arm. Really making sure to turn my torso. There we go. Okay, so in our next one, we're going to use a 1 and 4 strike, and they are going to strike simultaneously, right? So that means that 1 and 4 are going to strike simultaneously. The top hand is doing a number 1, the bottom hand is doing a number 4 strike. Keep going with this. I'm going to just explain a quick moment of theory here. Part of the reason why I need to make sure that I'm turning my body as I do these strikes is that if my offline stepping is working and I'm doing it well, I don't step out with my right foot and the person is still in front of me, but I step out and the person is actually on my inside line. And so now I can do that strike to this direction as opposed to doing it this direction. I'm doing it over here. And so that's part of why I have to really make sure I'm doing the work of turning my torso as I strike. And so now alternate between that parallel line striking and that 1 and 4 strike. All right, so there's a parallel line. That's your parallel line. That's your 1 and 4. That's your 1 and 4. Right, the parallel line is your 1 and 2. That's your 1 and 2. Here's your 1 and 4. Here's your 1 and 4. 1 and 2. 1 and 2. 1 and 4. 1 and 4. Parallel line. Parallel line. 1 and 4. Your 1 and 4. All right. So let's a series of strikes where it will be a 1 and then a payong, a 1, 2, and then a payong, 1, 2, 3, payong, 1, 2, 3, 4, and payong. And after each one of those, we are going to do a 4, 1 to switch, and they're going to be sequential. So they are not going to be at the same time, but they will be sequential. Okay? So just to give us some variance so that we know we can strike them simultaneously, and we know we can also do them sequentially. All right? All right. So our first thing is going to be to strike a broken 1, and then readjust that thing into a payong, right? And then do 4, 1. So a broken 1, you see it's across the face. I readjust it into a payong. I rechamber it, and then I do my 4 and my 1. So let's do that a couple more times. I want to make sure that I'm being distinctive about coming into that payong position and not just doing one like this, like swinging it around my head, but I want to do an actual payong and then do the 4, 1. Okay, so now let's do a fluid 1, a broken 2, payong, 4, 1. Fluid 1, broken 2, payong, 4, 1. Fluid 1, broken 2, payong, 4, 1. Fluid 1, broken 2, payong, 4, 1. You see that still, like this 1 cuts in front of my face. This number 2 is between you and me, right? It's right in front of my face. I transition it to that payong, and then I cut the 4 and the 1, and both of them pass in front of my body. 1, 2, 2, 1, 2. Okay, so now we have our 1 and then our 1, 2. Let's do both of those, right? So we have 1, payong, 4, 1. 1, payong, 4, 1. Then I have 1, 2, payong, 4, 1. 1, 2, payong, 4, 1. So 1, payong, 4, 1. 1, payong, 4, 1. 1, 2, payong, 4, 1. 1, 2, payong, 4, 1. Payong, 4, 1. Payong, 4, 1. 1, 2, payong, 4, 1. 1, 2, payong, 4, 1. Nice. All right. So now we'll add 3, obviously, right? So we'll do 1, 2, all the way to our low load. So now we're not going to come all the way back up to the shoulder. We're going to go 1, 2. From the low load, we're going to cut 3. And then we're going to transition this payong to a number 1 payong. And then cut 4, 1. 1, 2, to my low load, 3, transition to a number 1 payong, 4, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, so let's do all those in sequence, right? So we'll go 1, 4, 1, 1, 4, 1, 1, 2, 4, 1, 1, 2, 4, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and then back to the beginning. 1, 4, 1, 1, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, 1, 2, 4, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Back again. 1, 4, 1, 1, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, 1, 2, 4, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay. So we have one last one, obviously, which will be our 4. So we'll have a fluid 1, a fluid 2, a fluid 3, a fluid 4, and it's already in my biome position. So I just have to rechamber it and then do 4, 1. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then rechamber. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm still, even though it's in the position, it seems like a given, I'm being distinctive about kind of stopping in this moment just to make sure I recognize this is also a pion position, and I should be keeping my head beneath it, and it should be raised above me, and my hand should not be in line with my head, but should be offset from my head before I rechamber. So now we should be able to do all of those in a row, right? Okay, Earl asked a good question. He was saying on the number 3 strike, when I do this 3 and then I adjust it to become a number 1 pion, where is the tip of the stick facing? And yes, I have that facing towards the person. I have this number 3 and it's already facing towards them, right? It's kind of slicing upward as if at some point it might even transition into a thrust. So from that, I don't change that reference until I'm ready to pull it into my biome, right? I have that number 3, it cuts up. This is tip forward. I rotate around, and then I only pull it when I'm ready to go into this biome, and only because we're choosing to do a defensive biome as opposed to a offensive biome where the tip would stay forward. We're just kind of making the choice in this moment to transition it to a defensive biome here where tip is down this way as opposed to tip forward. Okay, so yeah, good question. All right, so let's go through all, hopefully that answers the question actually. But let's go through all 4 of those. All right, so we have 1 biome, 1 biome, 1, 2, biome, 1, 2, biome, 1, 2. This is that point that Earl just brought up. 3, biome, 1, 2, 3, biome, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 with the biome. 1, 2, 3, 4 with that intentional biome. And back at the beginning, 1, biome, 1, biome, 1, 2, biome, 1, 2, biome, and then 1, 2, 3, biome, 1, 2, 3, biome, and then 1, 2, 3. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, biome. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, biome, and there we are. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do before we kind of close all this down and wrap all of it up is we are going to add the first two that we put on there, that parallel strike and that 1-4 or cross strike, and then do all 4 so that you have that sequence, and then you can work on all of those. So you have your parallel strike, right? That's your 1 and 2, your 1 and 2, your 1 and 4 that go simultaneously, your 1 and 4 that are simultaneously, your 1 biome, 1 biome, 1, 2 biome, 1, 2 biome, 1, 2, 3 biome, 1, 2, 3 biome, 1, 2, 3, 4 biome, 1, 2, 3, 4 biome, and then parallel, and then parallel, and then 1, 4, and then 1, 4, right? And I can do those either with like a static footwork scenario, right, where I'm first figuring out the pattern of strikes, and then I can do that switching steps, right, in my reverse triangle. And then I should also work them where I'm stepping with the opposing foot, right, so that I'm stepping with my left foot, even though I'm chambered over on my right-hand side, and I do my parallel strike, so that I work on using that as a means for bridging. Right. And then I should work on doing them asymmetrically. So I should do my parallel strike from one side, and then my 1, 4, and then my 1 biome, and then my 1, 2 biome, and then my 1, 2, 3 biome, and then my 1, 2, 3, 4 biome, and then I can just do 4, 1 so that I can start the sequence on the other side, right? That's an easy way for me to transition over to being on the other side to start that sequence. So, yeah, thanks a lot for being here, for kind of like piloting this kind of practice. Basically, anytime I'm doing a practice that is, you know, my own, I'm going to start the first half of it by just doing fundamentals like this. It's a way for me to warm up and a way for me to commit a substantial amount of time to it every time. So even if I want to do something that is a more complex variation of these fundamentals, I'll start out by just doing this so that I can give it its due time. So I can really dedicate time to working on those practices and being particular about them. I want to say thanks a lot to Sean and Jen Gibbons who run this space. This is Functional Alternative in Beacon, New York. And so they're allowing me to do some shooting some video here. And, this is a great time for you to be using this and for you to be asking questions. Let me know if there are things particularly within the fundamentals category that you'd like to see in the future. I'm going to kind of stick to a lot of that, like body mechanics, fundamentals, being detail oriented, that kind of stuff. I'm going to focus on that while I do this. And I want to make sure I'm answering questions and doing things that you need. The next couple of times are going to be double stick oriented. And then we'll go backwards and go into some single stick stuff and just do some power generation, mobility, flexibility, range of motion oriented stuff. We'll spend a lot of time on footwork. We'll probably review this footwork again and do some more variations of the side stuff. And I think that is pretty much everything. I'm going to do these for the time being on Sundays in the morning like this, and then I'll do them Wednesdays in the afternoon. But you will have to let me know each time that you want to participate, and I will send you a link to it. Thank you for your patience today as I was figuring out how best to use the medium. Also, if you are a participant today and you let me know, I can give you access to a recording of this, I think, which means that you can then use it for your own reference. If you want to figure out how to structure a class of your own, and this is helpful for you in some way, shape, or form, or structuring your personal practice, then hopefully that's helpful for you. Okay? So that being said, Ella? Go on.